Hi, and welcome to Financial Autonomy. I'm Paul Benson, Certified Financial Planner at Guidance Financial Services. Today's episode is the beginning of something new for the podcast and something I've wanted to do for a while. This is the first episode in a series I'm calling Financial Essentials. Over the years, we've now recorded more than 400 episodes of the podcast. That's a great library of content, but I also appreciate that if you've only found us recently, that number of episodes might feel a little overwhelming. So with this series, I wanted to go back through the archive and highlight the episodes that I think are most useful, most practical, and most worth your time. The great thing about finance is that while rules may change here or there and new products or platforms come along, the core principles tend to stay the same. So even 400 episodes later, there are conversations from the early days of the podcast that still hold up and still have plenty of value. So that's what this series is about. Each Monday, we'll be sharing one episode from the Financial Autonomy Vault that I think is essential listening. Some are listener favourites, some answer questions that come up with clients all the time, and others are episodes I simply think are worth revisiting because they explain an idea that can make a meaningful difference to how you think about your money, even if you've heard them before. And to start the series, I've chosen an episode that gives us a really useful foundation. I hope you enjoy this first episode in the Financial Essentials series. Welcome back to the Financial Autonomy Podcast. My name's Paul Benson. Thanks very much for joining us. With mortgage rates having leapt up this past year, the effective return savers receive by parking their money in an offset account is looking increasingly attractive. This has led to a question we're being asked more and more. Should I invest or just leave my money in the offset account? Let's begin by level setting and ensuring that you're clear on what an offset account is. Firstly, an offset account is always linked to a mortgage. If you don't have a mortgage, you won't have an offset account. Offset accounts earn no interest. However, money held in these accounts reduces the amount of interest paid on the linked mortgage. Say you have a $500,000 mortgage with $100,000 sitting in your offset account. The money in the offset account will be subtracted from the amount owed on your mortgage, and interest only charged on the difference. In this example, that means you'll be paying interest on $400,000. Because your monthly repayments will have been calculated on the full mortgage balance, this interest saving means more of your repayments are going to reducing the principal, and as a result, the funds sitting in the offset account will cause your mortgage to be repaid more quickly. The nice thing with offset accounts is they're very flexible and liquid. Whether the money you put in there remains for months or years, or just a few days, doesn't greatly matter. Your money in the offset account is completely accessible whenever you need it. The primary drawback of an offset account is that the savings you have in there gets eaten away by inflation. Leave that $100,000 in the offset account for 3 or 4 years, and what you could buy with that money is eroded meaningfully. But despite this drawback, with mortgage rates sitting at around 6%, which therefore means money in your offset account is effectively earning this rate of return, it's certainly worthwhile considering whether alternatives, almost certainly involving more risk, are worth pursuing. The first factor to consider in determining the path forward that's right for you is your investment timeframe. Money that you're likely to need in the next year or two needs to be held in a liquid and secure form. Money spent over this timeframe won't be impacted greatly by the corrosive effect of inflation. If you have a mortgage on your home, holding these sort of funds in an offset account would probably be sensible. Money intended to be put away for the long term, however, could perhaps be better deployed elsewhere. Average returns over the past 30 years up to the end of the 2022 financial year have been 9.8% per year for Australian shares and 11.7% for US shares in Australian dollar terms. None of us know what the future holds, but 30 years worth of data would seem a reasonable reference point. Hopefully it doesn't persist, but we're in a higher inflationary environment just at the moment. And in such an environment where higher returns are more probable than lower returns, if for no other reason than the impact of inflation on company sales and profits. When weighing up investing versus an offset account, tax must also be considered. The effective return received on your offset account is an after-tax return. That's because you don't receive any interest on this money, so there's nothing to declare on your tax return. This clearly differs from your investments, where income and capital gains need to be declared. In the case of Australian shares, there are franking credits that will offset part of this, and capital gains tax typically receives a 50% discount. So these make comparisons tricky. But nevertheless, in arriving at the strategy that's right for you, you'd certainly want to adjust down the investment returns to reflect tax payable in order to get a fair comparison with the offset account. Even in our current high mortgage rate world, investing still stacks up for your long-term savings. Offset accounts, however, have unquestionably become a more attractive place in which to park short-term money. Where you have clear spending plans, uncertainty around job security, or perhaps just finding enough money for the mortgage repayments is getting increasingly tight, then holding your savings in an offset account could well be the best approach for you. And if you're coming up with a big financial decision, whether that's retirement, investing, helping the kids, selling a property, receiving an inheritance, or simply trying to make better use of your money, getting tailored advice can make a real difference. If you'd like help working through your options, you can book a meeting through the link in the show notes. All right, well, look, thanks for listening to this week's episode. If you found it helpful, share it with a friend who you think might benefit too. Of course, be sure to subscribe to the podcast so that you never miss an episode. And if you want to stay across all things, finance, headlines, plus a really fun quiz of the week, then make sure you subscribe to our Gaining Choice newsletter. And there's a link in the show notes for you to do that. Okay, bye for now.